All right, Nick, let's talk about the Seattle Seahawks. As we know, there's been a lot of change on this team. They're kind of waiting for a player to step up and take over the middle of the field. We're talking about the middle linebacker position on defense. And there's one guy that knows the middle linebacker position more than anyone else on this team, and that's head coach Mike McDonald. He's a linebacker aficionado. And there's one guy in particular through this draft that he's given some high praise to. Let's get into the article and we'll talk about it more on the other side. This is from All Seahawks and says Tyrese Knight has a lot of potential, especially after being given the stamp of approval from new head coach Mike McDonald. McDonald said, I think he brings some thump at the point of attack, and then when we brought him in, we got to meet him. We just really like the person and the competitor, McDonald said. His demeanor is soft-spoken right now, but I think he's a very clear communicator and then just a guy throughout the process we really started to like. Linebackers are paid to make tackles. He makes a lot of tackles, so that's a good thing. Again, this is from over on All Seahawks. Nick, I think this is just showing that McDonald really thinks that Knight could bring some, life to this middle linebacker position or the linebacking core in general. I think he can be a missing piece because ever since Bobby Wagner has left Seattle, I think they've been looking for the guy to come in and really give some life back to this linebacking core. Curious what your thoughts are on this one, Nick. But Seattle fans, in the comment section below, let us know. We're going to cover Tyrese Knight. You let us know, what rookies are you looking at so far this season? Who do you think is very interesting? And who do you think potentially could be a hidden gem on this roster? Let us know your thoughts on these guys in the comment section below. But Nick, what are your thoughts on McDonald's comments on Knight?
Well, I think it underlies exactly what you're talking about with the big changes the Seahawks made at the linebacking position this offseason. Of course, Wagner's gone. Brooks is now gone as well. They added Dotson and Baker from the Miami Dolphins coming into the fold. So they added some veteran guys, but it clearly was a position where there was just clearly their number one need, at least on defense, in my opinion. And they went out and got two good veterans. But I tell you what, there's something special about Knight. We talked about him right after the draft. He's just one of these guys who was just a really, really good football player who fell in the draft because of some people didn't like his measurables. Some people didn't like the competition he played. Some people didn't like some of his technique sometimes at linebacker, which I think is kind of silly at times, but he fell in the draft anyway, and the Seahawks smartly picked him up. Now Mike McDonald is really enthused about him, really likes what he's doing so far as we're working our way through OTAs. That in by itself is a great time because, like you mentioned, Mike McDonald's a linebacker aficionado. He knows what he's talking about. So McDonald by himself being excited, that would be a great sign. But we always talk about on the show, we look for corroborating evidence. We look for multiple sources, multiple vantage points, triangulating around one opinion. And there's one former Seahawks linebacker, Lofa Tatupu, has come out recently, and he's been really excited about Tyrese Knight. Here's what Tatupu said. He said, quoting him directly, this is from sports.mynorthwest.com, saying, I know we were going to get a linebacker because the veterans we signed, they're on one-year deals, so they had to get some depth there, but I wasn't super familiar with Tyrese. So right after he got drafted, I ran straight to the computer and looked him up. I was impressed. Tatupu went on to say he made plays in coverage, tackles for loss, everything you want. He's a really well-rounded linebacker. I'm excited about it because he's already been through the fire. That's what really what part of the draft and evaluating kids is, what kind of adversity they've been through. He's been through the fire. So not only does Tatupu, former Seahawks great linebacker, knows how to play NFL linebacker, obviously, is not only he's really excited about what Tyrese Knight will bring the Seahawks, Mike McDonald is as well. And if you look at the value the Seahawks got from the draft, from just an outside media perspective, it was a great pickup from there too. So no matter how you look at it here, the Seahawks got something special here in Tyrese Knight. And I think Seattle fans, look, obviously moving off of Wagner, probably for the last time, moving off of Brooks at this point, sea change at linebacker. I know there were some concerns. I know there's some question marks, but I think your future looks really good, at least in one of those linebacking spots, because Tyrese Knight seems to check every single box.
Yeah, and this kind of reminds me of something similar when we're talking about the status of this Seahawks roster. Is a little bit before Mike McDonald's time, but in 2019, Baltimore, where he came from, where he learned a lot of things from, had two linebackers, on 1-year deals. They had Josh Bynes, they had LJ Fort, the guys that got midseason to come when they completely stripped the middle linebacker position, got guys to come back in. Then the next draft, what do? They go out, get guys like Patrick Queen. They start to rebuild the linebacking core. They bring in a guy later on like Mike McDonald, and they start to build for the future. LJ Fort gets extended, gets a little bit of more time on the team while they're going under this reconstruction. So Mike McDonald came in the middle of the reconstruction of this linebacking core, but I think we saw the effect that he had on it. Bringing in a guy like Roquan Smith, getting the best out of a guy like Patrick Queen. I think Mike McDonald is the perfect person suited to come into Seattle and help replace the hole left by Bobby Wagner. And I think his words and Tatupu's words about a guy like Tyrese Knight are very, very promising for me to think that they have the right guy. Maybe it takes a little bit of development, but Mike McDonald, again, the right guy to develop him to be the guy that they need to be in the middle of the field.